So this is the problem with Blizzard balancing. I don't know if it's because they don't play the game enough. I don't know if it's they do factor these things, but they don't communicate them at all. But the problem is that even if I give them that slack, if we look at their track record, they have a track record of buffing and nerfing the wrong things. So I can't even with good conscience say that that's the problem. You say 50% win rate, but that completely removes the nuance about what feels good for the Genji, what feels good to play against Genji, and why the win rate is carried by things that limit skill expression. So I'm going to start this off with a discussion on Genji, which I think is interesting. Here we go.
I'll give you any comments.
Let's actually change the speed to something a little bit more processable.
On social platforms. On Overwatch content. Out of curiosity.
Time to time.
I only asked this because one of the most commonly upvoted comments is, well, that's another reason to nerf Genji. On the topic of Genji, does the team feel that Genji is underpowered right now and may need a small buff, especially after removing that movement speed DPS passive from Season 1? Alec answered by saying that no, he doesn't think Genji needs a buff. Genji is still above a 50% win rate, and his pick rate is healthy as he's a very popular hero. He did note that in peak Season 1 release, he was way up there, way too high as the top DPS choice before Sojourn caught on, but after the nerfs they gave him, he's actually in a much better spot. Does that mean they'll never buff him? Of course not. Despite the good win rate, Alec emphasized that he still wants heroes to feel impactful and successful, since player perception of the hero is something that they really take into consideration.
If you're not shaking your head after hearing this, you're not paying attention. Because what has just been said by CarQ translating what has been said is a major, major issue. Major issue. Now let's talk about the problems of this point by point, okay? First point, around 50% win rate. Now, I'm going to pull up Overbuff, and I want to delve into this a little bit deeper with you guys right now. Here's the problem with win rate as a parameter. Win rate lacks nuance. You see, ultimately, here's what we have to kind of consider with win rate. Win rate factors in two things to my knowledge. One is how strong actually more than two things. How easy, so in other words, how easy is it to leverage the hero's value? Okay, so how powerful skill floor or skill ceiling and value ceiling, okay? And then the other one here is, now chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but is win rate not affected by pick rate? In other words, if a hero is extremely popular and that we end up having mirror matchups, that does negatively impact pick rate or win rate. So if you have a hero with a really high pick rate, the win rate's going to be slightly lower because a lot of people picking Genji are losing games because they're playing into a Genji. I think that they don't use mirror matchups, but I'm not sure. Okay. Devs use unmirrored win rate, so that's good. Okay. The problem here is saying that even if we disregard this, Genji is fine, doesn't need buffs because his pick rate is fine and his win rate is fine. Okay. The problem with that is we don't know what win rate is fine. What win rate is fine? Is a win rate in bronze fine? Is a win rate in GM fine? Top 500 fine? You see, the problem with that is it lacks the nuance and execution. You see, if we give an example of, let's say the best balanced hero in the game, and this is going to be a bit of a hot take, but I'm just going to use this as an example. Maybe not the best, but is Tracer, okay? Because the problem with Tracer, or the good thing about Tracer is it is a hero that rewards skill. And rewards skill in all facets of her abilities and ult expression. And always, ultimate, cooldowns, mechanics is easy to counter and hard to counter at the same time. In other words, if somebody makes a swap to a pick, you're not completely gimped, you can still find ways to get value, right? Now, here's the problem with Genji. Genji, objectively, is a hero that rewards skill, but does not reward skill as much as Tracer. So in other words, when you have a hero like Genji that's very, very difficult to master, almost to the level of Tracer, but doesn't reward you as much as Tracer, that means there's something wrong with the hero. So saying that he has a 50% win rate and therefore he's fine is a really simplistic and silly way of looking at it, because it's not considering that how the win rates may change at different ranks, and also it's not considering whether the hero is rewarding it for the investment of time being put into him. And here's the other problem, chat. How many of you guys think... Here's a question. How much of Genji's win rate is carried by Nanoblade? It's a rhetorical question, right? We all know the answer to that. Or just damage boosted blades in general. A lot. A significant amount. Now here's the other question. Versus Nanoblade, what's the counterplay? What's the counterplay for Nanoblade? I mean, it's almost uncounterable. Trance, beat, sleep dart. By the way, I have played in pro contenders and Owl metas with Nanoblade being meta, and at the pro level, Nanoblade is almost just go next. At the pro meta. And here's the other question, and I'm going to tick some people off with this. I'm a Genji main, keep this in mind. At least I was. How hard is Nanoblade to use? I didn't say blade, I said Nanoblade. It's not hard. Now, it can be done very well, and sometimes it is necessary to be done very well, but it's not that hard. It's not that hard. You can even focus tank with Nanoblade, and you just do so much damage, you just go right through. That's the problem with Genji. The problem with Genji is that the win rate is fine, but that he still doesn't reward the skill that he takes in. Skill does not equal value with Genji. And the only way that that is even expressed, it can be balanced, is by finding a way to shift the strength away from not even normal blade, but Nanoblade into the neutral. You could even buff normal blade to 120 damage. You probably should buff normal blade to 120 damage per swing. But damage boosted blade is the problem, and the neutral game is too weak. So this is the problem with Blizzard balancing. I don't know if it's because they don't play the game enough. I don't know if it's they do factor these things, but they don't communicate them at all. But the problem is that even if I give them that slack, if we look at their track record, they have a track record of buffing and nerfing the wrong things. So I can't even, with good conscience, say that that's the problem. You say 50% win rate, but that completely removes the nuance about what feels good for the Genji, what feels good to play against Genji, and why the win rate is carried by things that limit skill expression. You see, the problem with Nanoblade being what carries the character is it's uncounterable a lot of the times. And if you don't have the circumstances for Nanoblade, as a Genji player, my options are completely screwed. It's not like Tracer, I'm carried by fill in the blank. Tracer, even if she doesn't have Pulse Bomb, still has many options to express skill, a ceiling. Genji, you hit that ceiling, and there's nothing you can do. And my problem with this is, although this is a simplistic way of looking at it, this has been reflected in their balancing. Genji damage boosting blade is not a new point. It's not something that's new. Genji having a weak neutral but too strong of a Nanoblade combo, this isn't new. This has been talked about since at least 2018 or 2017, if not even sooner. So you could say, oh, well, this isn't fair. Okay, then why is it still a problem? And this is one hero. We're going to go on a wonderful ride talking about a lot more heroes that have this exact same issue. And it's one of the fundamental things wrong with Blizzard's balancing here. Okay? Let's keep going with this one, though. Still very popular. What? Why is this even a metric? I get that popularity matters to an extent, because if a hero is literally terrible, nobody ever plays them ever. It means that, okay, we need to sell more. I mean, we need to make it more balanced so that it becomes a higher pick rate, right? I guess I know the popularity matters, but that's not a real argument, right? It's more of when when we hit the floor, something should be kind of concerned. Okay. Now let's keep talking about this, okay? So win rate here. Let's listen to Mercy.
Next question was with Mercy's Guardian Angel change in Season 4. I mentioned that it feels as if Mercy is being punished for performing movement text because of the longer cooldown. I asked Alec how he feels about the GA changes thus far. Is he happy about it? Are they looking to revert it or change it? For Guardian Angel, their stance is that they want to keep the ability simple, but don't want to take away skill expressions such as the slingshots and super jumps. Alec acknowledged that the Season 4 patch note for her was a little hard to understand for both sides, right? And having different GA cooldowns depending on if you added movement tech or not isn't perfect.
They want to keep it simple, but they punished. So which is it? Which is it? Yes or no?
And they're still evaluating it. They do want Mercy to be in a place where they don't have to change it over and over again, as it does hurt with muscle memory and is obviously very frustrating.
Hello? You know? This is what I don't understand. Like you have, and the problem here is Mercy's another one of them where you will have them whipping out win rates in the past to discuss Mercy power value. But the problem is people don't have a problem with Mercy win rates. If Mercy was a high pick rate, high win rate hero, but had high skill expression and high counterplay for both sides, then people wouldn't be complaining. I know people don't like Tracer, but the proportion of people that don't like Tracer versus people that don't like Mercy is insane, because one hero has value that takes a measurable amount of game sense mechanics and general skill, and the other one does not. Now, Mercy has a skill ceiling, but it's lower, significantly lower than a hero like Tracer, and that also hurts Mercy in the fact that if you play versus some compositions at a higher level, you literally cannot play the game. You cannot play the game. You could be the world's best Mercy, but there is a ceiling to how good you can get with the hero and how much you can get out of the hero. Let me wrap this up in as simple as I possibly can. Here's what I'm advocating for. There's two camps that you can be in, and you could be somewhere in between, but you have to communicate it, okay? There is skill camp, or there is, pardon the term, but we're gonna go segregate it, okay? Skill camp means everything is viable. Everything. In other words, when you play Moira versus playing Mercy or Zenyatta or Ana, every hero has a high skill ceiling. Everything rewards skill. Everything. And what that means is that some aspects of some heroes are hard to get good value out of, but you are rewarded always for inputting almost to an almost limitless amount for putting in skill into a hero. And when I ask you what heroes fall into this category, there's going to be a few that immediately come to mind. Tracer, Winston to an extent, I guess Ana to an extent. Like it's messy at some point, even Zenyatta to an extent, right? Now, the segregated one is a camp where we have weak and strong. And you would say, Moira, Bastion, you'd have Mercy, you'd have Junkrat, right? And then strong, you would have, your Tracers, you have your Genjis, and you'd have your, Winstons, and so on, right? You have heroes that are easy to play, but are balanced to be noob friendly, but have a very low ceiling. Like you can't play Junkrat at a high level. I'm sorry, it's not allowed. Or you're not. Mercy is a decent pick up until around Masters, but she's not a good hero to pick in higher ranks, right? And then you get the heroes like these heroes, which are hard to play, but have a big or very rewarding. Genji is going to be really hard for our lower ranked players, but as you get better at the game, there's just noob heroes. Now, here's the problem. Overwatch doesn't do either. It doesn't do either. Look at this list here, right? Overwatch has had Mercy at a very high pick rate with a very low skill expression. This has also happened with Junkrat. This has happened with Roadhog. And yet we have also simultaneously had times where we saw Tracer over here. We are currently still, and have been for a while, in a position where Genji's over here. And was for a long time. And even to a lesser extent, Winston. They've said they want every hero to be playable, but you cannot do that unless you do this philosophy. If you want every hero to be playable, then every hero has to have some variation of rewarding skill to value ratio. Has to be equal. And if you don't, then you're going to have a garbage game philosophy, garbage balancing. And this is why win rate doesn't tell you the whole story. Because it doesn't factor in the skill floor, value ceiling, all that kind of stupidness into the hero at all. You want every hero to be rewarded? Well, I'm sorry, Roadhog mains, you don't get that. You don't deserve to be playable for the amount of effort that you put in versus a Winston player. Moira, sorry, you're just not as hard to play as Ana. I'm just sorry. So either we need to change Moira and reward skill expression more, or Moira's a noob hero. There is no in between. Same thing with Doomfist, right? Why is a Doomfist a niche hero that's not even good at the higher ranks when he takes infinitely more skill expression than a lot of the other tanks? Why? Why is that allowed? And the problem here is that we have heroes like Genji and to a lesser extent Winston, Ana, I guess not as much Ana, but there's a lot of heroes that are just not rewarded for being good at them. And there are even aspects within those heroes, like for example, when we talk about Sojourn, okay? Trying to think of like what a good, okay, let's actually talk about this. Here's a great example, Orisa. Chat, Orisa was very popular for a period of time, especially when Roadhog was around, and a lot of people were rightfully complaining about Orisa's strength. Her win rate was too high. Pick rate was too high. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is the most skillful aspect of Orisa? What are some of the more skillful aspects of Orisa? And what are some of the least skillful in the Orisa? Javelin, okay, that's a good. Javelin is a little bit too big of a hitbox, but it takes skill, okay. Cooldown timings, cooldown rotations, okay. What is the biggest noob, too easy of a thing about Orisa? What's the noob stomp? What's the thing? What is the thing that makes Orisa so dumb to play and not even challenge for? Right. Survivability. Now, whether you want to say that's the low cooldown on Javelin spin, the fortify HP, the lack of headshot, which doesn't reward skillful play into the hero. And when they nerfed Orisa, what did they do? They reduced her gun damage at medium range. Why? Why? Why are you doing this? One of the few unique and interesting things that showed skill expression and rewarded talent, and you kept her survivability at basically the exact same thing, the easy part of the hero, because of the spear one-shots, right? The one interesting part, the spear one-shots. Now you could say, well, the spear was too easy to hit. Okay, I could agree with that. Shrink the hitbox of the javelin if we need to. I agree. I think I've hit a lot of javelins that should not have hit. But why are you doing the most fun and interesting part of the hero, the part that also made her relatively unique? And why are you leaving her survivability as it is? So why? And this is the problem. This is the problem. When you look at the hero cast, too many times you have heroes that have been nerfed in all the wrong ways. In all the wrong ways. Or buffed in all the wrong ways. And that's the problem. Right. Mercy, damage, boost, and rest. Right. So they removed the GA skill expression. They made Mercy a much less rewarded for being skillful. So again, I want to go back to my point here. You have to pick your poison. Do you want to balance around these are strong heroes, these are weak heroes, and we balance accordingly? Or noob heroes, these are, you know, high level, high skill ceiling heroes. Or do you want to make all heroes viable? But then in that instance, you do have to make sure that all heroes have relatively similar skill curves. And you can do something in between. Like you could say that Moira is viable at Grandmaster, she's just not viable at Overwatch League level. So what we're going to do with Moira right now is we're going to leave her power level the same, where she's still viable at Grandmaster, but we're going to make her a little bit trickier to play. So it's a little bit less of a noob stomper. You could do that. But but they didn't do that, chat. They buffed Fade and Cole. They made nothing about her trickier to play. Oh, here's a great idea. Nerf Moira's self-sustain from right click or damage orb or something like that, and then give her Cole and Fade. To where maybe her net power value is the same at the top, but it takes a little bit more thought to get there. But this has been an issue in the entire game, and this has been an issue for a long time, guys. No, I agree with that assimilator to an extent. But this is why, okay, so this kind of goes back to my initial point about the Mercy identity. The problem is you have to know, not only know your game philosophy design, like your philosophy of how we're balancing the game, is it one of the two camps that I described earlier. But then within that, you also have to know what is this hero? Where is this hero's skill expression? What is fun about playing Ana, and what is not fun about playing versus Ana? As a tank, it just feels unfun to get slept because it's a low skill play on a tank. Okay, then we're gonna make balance adjustments accordingly. Okay, you know, what is unfun playing versus a Moira? Well, damage orb just feels like totally skillless and like there's no aim required. What is not fun as a Moira player? Well, it feels like I don't contribute enough to the battlefield. Then adjust those numbers accordingly. What is unfun about Cassidy? Well, Sticky Grenade, it's a skillless ability. Okay, what's fun as a Cassidy? Well, I mean, Sticky is like, I mean, come on, guys. Like, how fun is sticking as Cassidy? It's not fun. So they gave him ability that was not only not fun for the Cassidy, but also not fun for the person playing against the Cassidy. You know, same thing with Kiriko. What's fun is Kiriko? Heal botting? No, it's not heal botting. It's taking angles and dueling in DPS. So then why was Kiriko allowed to have basically one of the highest HPSs in the entire game for as long as she did? Right? And you could go down the list here, right? Like, what's fun about Junkrat? Well, the 2-taps, the 1-shots. What's not fun versus Junkrat? Well, the 1-shots. Okay, maybe we need to revisit how this hero is designed then. And I do not trust the balance team with these reworks, if these reworks are even going to happen. Keep going down the list here. Like, you guys follow me, right? Like, when you have heroes like Bastion, for example, that there's only so good that you can get at Bastion. And it is a noob stomper. It's just a poorly designed hero. Sombra, that's another one. Jeez. What's fun? Like I don't even want to think about Sombra. Sombra is a big, giant mess of a hero. But you can't go, oh, Sombra's win rate is too low. I'm sorry. Sombra is a bad design hero. She's frustrating to play against always, for everybody. So you have to factor in the quality of the hero design about whether they deserve to be higher rank. You know? I'm sorry to be that guy, but it's just the truth. So I guess all that being said is we have a major problem because we don't know where Blizzard's camp is. I think it's probably more leaning in towards fun, where every hero should be viable. But the problem is they have their cake and they eat it too. They say every hero should be viable, but then they don't make the skill expressions equal from all heroes. And then they pull this garbage out like win rate, never looking at the context of whether and when that win rate actually makes any sense. Like, for example, if we look at where's Genji? Where's Genji? Am I blind? We talked about this, right? Why is Genji win rate probably so high? Because Nanoblade. Guess what, chat? There is nothing more frustrating as somebody playing into a Genji than Nanoblade. So you should go, hey, this here is being carried by Nanoblade or Damage Boosted Blade. It's also very frustrating to play against. Let's worry about Nanoblade. Cheers. Thanks, mate. Yeah, I'll check it, Dolos. Give me a sec. But like you can't, like for example, oh, Widowmaker's win rate is fine. Yes, but Widowmaker, as you guys saw in my video the other day, is way too strong in niches where she's good and complete garbage in niches when she's not. So if we're going by the Overwatch 2 dynamic, a lot of heroes are viable in different circumstances, this hero is a complete failure. A complete failure. Like you have to think about this, like you can't, like what they say, lies and damn lies and statistics or whatever they say. Like you can't just say what's going on here. You can't just say, oh, win rate is, we live and die by win rate. Like that's just cringe, man. Like it baffles me. Like maybe that's just the way that they're communicating it with the community, but they're doing a horrible job of it, respectfully. Okay, let's take a look at this. So value and skill. Right. So it seriously plateaus as Mercy. The better you get, you don't get rewarded. Whoops. As much with Mercy, which is a major problem. Widowmaker, this is, more of what we expect to see, right? But the funny thing is, even here, even when you're the GOAT at Widowmaker, there's still a vast majority of maps and situations where Widowmaker is literally just a troll pick, right? Tracer is more flat, more linear, right? This is actually kind of an interesting one from Pharah, where like, yeah, when you're really good at Pharah, you're able to figure out the situations that are good. But like you look at this and you would like to think that this is more of a healthy way of looking at the game and that this is not as healthy, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good graph, Dolos. Thank you. They don't ask the question why enough. I mean, I think that's the thing that ticks people off like me the most, is where it feels like we get thrown statistics, but I'm not asking for Genji to be stronger. We're asking for Genji's ceiling to be higher. Not for Genji to be stronger at all ranks all the time, but for Genji's ceiling to be higher. For Mercy's ceiling to be higher. Right? For Moira's ceiling to be higher and her floor to be lower, or however you want to interpret it. I didn't have any discussion with no. The best thing that I could contribute is when we had the Overwatch League Discord, we did have a lot of discourse with some of the devs in there. The best thing that I could say that I tried to hammer at the Sojourn changes, which they didn't listen to. I feel like there was one change that they made that I helped with. I don't remember what it was, or at least I was one of the main voices that was ended up changed, but I can't remember what it was. I honestly can't remember. It was something early in the beta. But like you have to factor in how skill expressive the hero is, how quality the design is, and then go accordingly. And we just don't know these things. Now, this is the real concern, because we've had these issues for years, but the real problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that this isn't likely to change. And I think that's the most depressing part right now, is that we have honestly a very rushed hero in release. Very rushed hero in release. And a hero that was clearly in still beta stages. And, you know, they're going to put stuff that makes money, right? They're going to keep releasing new heroes because new heroes equals people want to try the hero out, you know, skins, things like that. And so we're talking about things like this hero needs a rework. This hero probably needs something of a rework. This hero definitely needs a rework. This hero needs some changes. This hero still needs some changes. This hero almost certainly needs some changes. This hero still needs a lot of changes. This hero arguably probably needs some changes. Her mouse one is still too weak. She just feels really not that fun to play nowadays. This hero definitely needs some changes. This hero needs some changes with cooldowns. This hero probably could use a couple of changes. This hero definitely needs changes. This hero needs a lot more changes. This hero arguably deserves changes as well. Kiriko's fine. Reaper, I don't know. Reaper just falls into this who cares category. May is probably honestly fine. Ana's probably fine. Echo's fine. Needs changes. I mean, do you see a pattern here, guys? Like, this is a problem, y'all. This is a problem. I'm not even halfway through. And it's not going to happen. We're going to keep churning out new heroes that are, you know, not particularly well done. And we'll see. We'll see. Like, Junker Queen, Sojourn, and Kiriko were reasonable enough. But it's not like with the added pressure of adding new heroes that this is going to get any better. So we have so many heroes in here that are either not particularly good designs or not rewarded for skill expression or rewarded too much for low skill expression, and that's not likely to change. And what's going to make money is new heroes. But the problem is you know, this is the mobile game design. Like, outside of a few games, like I think like Elden Ring, Age of Empires, there's a lot of games right now where it's just about putting out stuff and monetizing as fast as you possibly can, even if the quality is not that good. And I know that's probably the direction that we're going to continue to go. I'm going to keep speaking out against it, because it's in my best interest to keep the game competitive. And I also just think it's wrong. You know, like I don't like it. I really strongly feel that way, and I'm going to say it. So am I expecting things to change? No, I'm not, but I'm going to still say it anyway. Now, we could sit here and theorize why this is the case. Is it Moneybags McGee, you know, just churning out new heroes? Is it incompetence from the developers? Is it bad leadership without having... Because, like, remember, the big thing is, like, what are the identities of so many of these heroes? I don't know. I don't know Blizzard. I don't know the developers. I don't know if there are good developers that are getting handicapped. I've been in that position before where I've received criticism because of the team, but when it wasn't really my fault. It happens, right? So, but I will say that it is really concerning that this is kind of like what we're dealing with here. Yeah. You guys have any thoughts? AoE 2 so well balanced, right? Such a great game. It's been around for ages, and it's continually well balanced. Can you put skill sync into a measurable thing? Yes. So let's talk really quickly about this. Really quick, so everyone's on the same page. Value floor, value ceiling. Value floor is how good a hero is when played at base competence. So, like, let's say a hero like Moira is very powerful when played at base competence, but a hero like Doomfist is not as valuable when played at base competence. I would rather have somebody playing Moira who's at least picked up the basics of the hero, because they're going to do more than Doomfist would, right? This means more of a noob-encouraged hero, but it might also just be that the hero is just relatively strong. For example, Kiriko had a very high skill ceiling, but still had a very high value floor because Kiriko's healing and ultimate were so strong that you didn't even need to know all the nuances of Kiriko to get value. Value ceiling is how strong the hero is when played at a very high level. For example, if we look at something like Tracer, very high value ceiling when played very well, or something like a Roadhog, even when you master the hero, you're still not putting out a lot of value on the hero, right? Relative strength of the hero when played very well. Okay, then we move on from here to skill floor and skill ceiling. Skill floor is how much skill it takes to play the hero at base competence, right? So how long does it actually take to get the basics of fill in the blank hero, right? So a hero like, let's say, skill floor would be like a Junkrat, right? It doesn't take much skill to get the basics of Junkrat, right? Now, whether that hero is strong at the base is depending on the meta and the strength of the hero, right? But Junkrat is a very easy hero to pick up, whereas a hero like Genji, much harder to pick up, right? Much harder to pick up, which means that you should theoretically see this represented in their value floor. The goal is to have these numbers be relatively the same. The amount of effort that you put in, skill, rewards you with the amount of value that you get. But if we were to put Genji and Junkrat up here, you guys could probably guess that the value floor of Genji and Junkrat would be about the same, if not actually Junkrat with a slight advantage when played at base competency. And that's the problem. Last thing here, to finish it up, is skill ceiling. How difficult is it to master a hero? You throw in, let's just use our two things right here. Roadhog, pretty tricky, not super easy, but not anywhere near as hard as Tracer. So at least for these two comparisons, we like what these graphs look like, right? Tracer is rewarded compared to Roadhog. But unfortunately, this kind of healthy comparison doesn't exist in the entire game. I'm aware of how people define it, Nodlin. I don't care how other people define it. This is how I define it. I think it goes either way. I find this one more easy to understand, especially when we're splitting things up into value and skill. So the problem here is that, like, if you compare like a Rat versus a Genji, it's too easy to get decent at Rat and outperform a Genji with the same skill expression in terms of value. How to quantify this? Now, that's the great question. I don't think you can. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think you can. I think you can definitely quantify value floor by win rates in lower ranks, and same thing with value ceiling and higher rank. But I don't think things like skill floor and skill ceiling, I think you could maybe compare pick rates in lower ranks compared to pick rates in higher ranks and see if there's any discrepancy there. But I do think that these are very, in the same way that we don't like win rate being used as an objective standpoint, I don't think that you can objectively say, oh, this is just how it is. I do think that you have to apply a little bit of common sense and play your own game at a high level to think about this. And I think that you would need some form of a committee, right? Don't take my word for it. A lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people are a lot smarter than me when it comes to this stuff. So you would need to have some sort of a committee and come to some sort of an agreement with this. But it's theory, right? It's theory that you can make educated guesses on, but it's still theory. Yeah. But you can make educated guesses here. Like, we listen, you guys in chat, we don't have to pretend that Moira is a high skill expression hero. We can all agree that Moira is a high skill expression here compared to what people think she is. There is definitely more value there than meets the eye, but she's not a high skill expression here compared to a Lucio or a Zenyatta or even a Mercy, right? So at the very least, we could use these basic parameters and metrics to attack low-hanging fruit. Let's address the outliers. Genji is not rewarded for the skill expression, right? Sombra is a poor hero design. But we need to do something that leans into things that make her fun, right? So we don't have to make it perfect. You're not ever going to have a perfectly balanced game. It is impossible. But you don't need to. You're always going to have people like me complaining. Always. We're idiots, right? We do nothing but complaining. But at the very least, you can remove the variance. Yeah, but by committee, I mean a committee of developers who actually play their game. I don't mean by committee of, like, you know, I mean, yeah. Reinhardt, Winston, Tracer, honest heroes. Now, people are going to be like, well, Ana and Zen, and I know Zen and Discord are controversial as well, but, like, again, would you prefer a Zen meta, or would you prefer a Moira meta? So, I guess that's my take on it. I won't elaborate and go on and on and on a ton more, but This is my problem with the Overwatch Balance team, is that they use these statistics without context of why the statistics are the way that they are. For example, the win rate is higher for Genji because of the unfun to play versus hero things. Like if you think about it, like what inflates Genji's win rate is something that we don't even necessarily like. Like, I know as a Genji player that Dana Blade is fun, but it's also the most frustrating thing to play against his kit. So if I guarantee you 99% of Genji mains would be very happy if you buff the neutral and nerf Nano Blade. Yeah, I agree. That was one of the main takeaways we had with the SVB contest podcast with Awkward, myself, and IOStux, is that we would love to have the experimental card back so that they could actually experiment and test changes. The problem now is, especially without that PTR, live is literally the testing ground. And I don't trust the developers to do that. I just don't. That is true, Voidstar. That is actually very true. That's true. So it's a shame that experimental is in La La Land, because it is exactly what needed to be used to actually try some of these changes. I wouldn't say Discord needs to be a skill shot, but maybe it's something that actually takes a little bit more thought and decision making, and it isn't something you can spam as much. But yeah, I don't want to go down the Discord rabbit trail, but I mean, I don't disagree with you that the Discord is the most frustrating part of Zenyatta's kit, and it's also the easiest to play. I care about this game, y'all. Like, there's aspects of this game that are so unique and so special about this game. So, you know, that's the problem. I'm not a doomer. I think the game will probably be fine for quite a while and playable.
Nice round.
Prima Lena, thanks for the sub. But this is and this has been a thing for a long time. This has been a thing for a long, long time. As long as I've been playing the game.